Heyo everybody, Haku here with the second part of my top 63 characters video, my third ranking characters discussion video for Magical Girl Raising Project or Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku. I'm going to keep this intro super short because this is a part 2 and I want to get straight into the discussions. If you don't know what's going on, because I haven't done any Magical Girl Raising Project videos previously with this setup, while I'm moving from one setup to another, I'm using this headset mic with the old camera. Now, why does it look blurry when I record with OBS as compared to recording with just the camera itself? Because I use OBS for these types of videos. I actually have no idea. I don't know why it's less HD, I suppose, because I looked at all my settings beforehand and everything looks good. So, yeah, I know most of you probably don't really care if the video quality is slightly less good, though, in a video like this. But yeah, just saying, I have no idea what's up with that, because it's something that I noticed in the first half of this video. But either way, let's go through my top 29. We're starting off with Stellar Mimi in 29th. So, Stellar Mimi is really another one of those characters where I said that I was going to be this way, where I'm like, oh my gosh, how is she only in 29th? How is she not way higher? Because Jokers, one of my favorite arcs, Jokers was so good, and she was really one of the carrying forces in Jokers. We saw from her perspective a lot of the time. She was one of the best characters in one of the best arcs. And in addition to that, her story and her death was so great. The development that she went through and the deaths that she had, there were a lot of good deaths I've brought up in Jokers, but hers was maybe one of the best. Next up in 28th is Lapis Lazuli, or rather the second Lapis Lazuli, Blue Comet. I feel like I need to say that every time, because if not, and I'm just like, oh, Lapis Lazuli, the thing that we, know her by, somebody's going to always be in the comments like, well, actually, don't you mean Blue Comet? Did you know there's actually more Lapis Lazulines? Like, we haven't read the story. I don't get it, but I feel the need to say that. But yeah, she's super high up because she's a fan favorite character, and for good reason. She's a really good character. And as much as I like Lapis Lazuli herself, and I really liked the bits we got with her human self, the best part about her character is her, I harp on relationships being so good. The best part of her character was her relationships. Her relationships with Detic Bell and Melville were both so interesting. The way she was one of the only people giving Melville a chance, who was kind of all in on being friends with Melville, and then the betrayal leading to their final fight against each other. It was really, really good. And Melville being the one to betray her other closest friend here, being Detic Bell, and the stuff with her and Detic Bell and their human forms, all of it was so good. So, yeah, that's why she's super high up, because, again, we're into the area where they're just all such good characters. Next up, pretty sure we're at 27th place, is Topsa-kame. And, I really, really kind of almost wish we didn't see any more Topsa-kame, because I don't want her to get hurt. Just be a clan tail, stay safe, stay away from everything. You don't need to come back, just stay safe. But I loved her in Limited. I thought she was one of the highlights. Like I've said, Limited had plenty of problems, but there was plenty of really good stuff too, and she was one of the high points in Limited. Her character is really creative, really good. I'm actually not a very big fan of her design. I don't like her design all that much, but I love her character so much that it makes up for it. Not only did I love her in Limited, her actual arc, I loved her in the epilogue for Jokers. So, yeah, just overall a great character and super, super interesting and creative and unique. Being an animal, but having that be more important to who her character is than Cherna, for example. Next in 26th is a bit of a depressing one with Nokko-chan. So, Nokko-chan has one of the best stories in the entire series. As a character, I won't say she's necessarily my favorite, though she's really, really high up. But if I were to judge who has the best stories, hers would probably be up there. Her backstory of why she's doing what she's doing is so good. Finding out that she's been a magical girl ever since she was so little, and having all this stacked against her while she was the demon lord, pretty much, whatever. I forget the actual terminology they use, but you get what I'm saying. It hurts a lot that she wasn't really ever evil. She was just trying to survive because she needed to win. She couldn't let all the others kill her or defeat her. She needed to get the money and to survive because she had to take care of her mom, and it was such a great story and such a tragic character. And again, Restart is one of the best things I have ever read, period. And Noko is one of the best stories involved in that. So, yeah, incredible story, and that's part of why I love the character so much. And now to lighten things up a little bit as we go to the top 25 with Miyakata Nonako, the Weeb Priest. So, yeah, I like Miyakata Nonako a lot. Her power was interesting. I think I was pretty disturbed when I think it was she took over the dragon and it ate the goblin or something along those lines, and I was like, man, Goblin's been working so hard for you. You are cold and heartless in a way. But yeah, I really liked her character. The little teeny bits we got with her in episodes were good. And once again, the best thing about her were her relationships. And I'm going to say this about any of the members of Pechka's team, is that any of the members of Pechka's team, part of the best thing about them are their relationships with the rest of Pechka's team, because Pechka's team is just really, really good, and the interplay between all their personalities is what makes them so good. So, yeah, I really like her. I like her a lot for herself, and I also like her as a member of Pechka's team, so kind of dual points there in a way. And look, I'm just now noticing with this picture I'm going to put up here, the dragon's face. So friggin' adorable. In 24th place is Malpam, gone too soon, like way too soon, in a surprising way actually too, because I had heard a lot of people talk about Malpam even back when I was just starting the light novels and stuff, me trying not to get spoiled and stuff. I had still heard like plenty about a character Malpam. So, and I had seen fan art of the design, I think, before. So I thought that she was going to be like an important character that keeps carrying on. And then she died off in the arc that she showed up in. And I was very surprised at that. So yeah, that kind of took me way off guard because I really wasn't expecting, like once I learned, oh, so that's Malpam, I was like, oh, she's probably going to survive then. Nope, didn't happen. I really liked her though. She was one of the MVPs of Limited. Like I've said, Limited had its good parts. Malpam was a really good character. I really, really liked Malpam. Now then, yeah, I guess another thing I would throw in is that in the grand scheme of the overall story, Malpam's a very important character too. It feels like the actions that she took are really important to things. And of course, there are very important characters that I put lower on the list because they were important in ways of screwing other people over, like Pithy or Keek or something. But she's incredibly important too to the overall story, spanning multiple arcs, in that the Mouse School is something that comes up again and again, even when we don't really know that it is. So even before we knew what it was, the Mouse School was important. So yeah, she's an important character, a good character, and I really, really liked her personally. In 23rd is Marika Fukuroi. I really, really liked Marika, and I didn't think, well, it's not that I didn't think I would at first, it's that at first I didn't really. I was like, she's an okay character, but what is really great about Marika is the way that she develops throughout the season. She had not season, through the volume, but she developed really, really well through the book and through the story. And I liked that growth, and I like that she survived so we can continue to see that growth into the future. There was a lot that I liked about her. Her powers were cool. I like her design. Her relationships with the other characters turned out to be really good. She was generally, Jokers was a really good arc, and she was an MVP, a really important key player in Jokers, and had some of the coolest moments in Jokers. In addition to that, I really like her real self that we got to see in the epilogue. I loved the real self behind Marika Fukuroi. What was she, Mariko Fukuroi? Was that it? I don't totally remember. I think it was. I think it was just Mariko with an O instead of an A. But yeah, I liked everything about her. Marika turned out to be one of my absolute favorites. Now, number 22 is a really, really interesting one. It's Masked Wonder. Now, the thing with Masked Wonder is we really didn't get to see very much of her, but in just the short time we got to spend with the character, she was one of my early favorites. If you remember, she was like one of my out-of-the-gate favorites when I was reading Restart. And yeah, so it was kind of sad that she was gone too soon, as it were. I liked the bit of her we got to have in episodes. And yeah, I guess, is that about it? Is there anything else I wanted to say about her? I feel like I'm forgetting something else, but yeah, I don't know. Just great in a short time. She was an early favorite of mine for Restart. Next up, so close to making it to the top 20, is another of the pure elements, Princess Quake. I love Princess Quake. Princess Quake is so good. And like, if you were to ask me some of my favorite, Princess Quake would probably come up pretty quick, so it hurts that I have another 20 that I like even more. But I thought the Princess Quake was hilarious. She had me laughing so much during my read-through. And other than her being hilarious, and again, the relationships between all the pure elements being really fun to see play out, another thing that I loved, and she had cool abilities, even though they were all just elementals. She had cool abilities. But another thing that I loved about the character is heroic sacrifices can kind of sometimes, like, I'm going to downplay it before I upplay it. Because I was about to say, I love heroic sacrifices. I love, like, the virtue of self-sacrifice is one of the coolest things in stories to me. And even in real life, it's one of the coolest things. The virtue of self-sacrifice is so great, and I love it in stories. Now, it can totally be done wrong. It can totally, like, there can be times when it happens and you're like, oh, well, that was obvious that was coming, or, well, that was kind of cheesy. But in her case, it was great. I loved it. She went from being this kind of jokey, comedic character to being like, well, I am the jokey, comedic character, but I'm also the oldest one. I'm a leader. I have to set an example. And even though if they knew who I was in real life, they might not feel the same about me, she was pretty much showing that who you would judge her as in real life, who she really was, I guess, so much different. I'm not even sure how to put it. But I don't know, just the fact that despite what you'd initially think of her, she, like, takes it up upon herself to be like, I'm going to protect others. I'm going to do what I can to save others. And though the other characters who were taken hostage and then killed, their deaths weren't that great. It's like, oh, what a waste of Umbrain. Oh, what a waste of, Cafario, what a waste of Tempest. And we're like, we really didn't get to see a story told very well with them, but Quake is totally different. The same thing happened. She was taken hostage and then killed to reshuffle the deck. But despite that, she actually had a story told through that happening that really fit well with her character. So while it didn't work with those other characters, it totally worked with Princess Quake. So, yeah, I do believe that is... Yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about her. I love it. She's great. Such a great character. And now we've made it to the top 20. And we have Mana as number 20. So she is the one member of the list that isn't really a magical girl. She's a mage, and that made her really cool and unique. Now, there are some drawbacks to that could have made her less interesting, but she ended up being more interesting. She was a great character. I freaking love her design. I love her personality. I love kind of her... I don't want to say her human form. I don't know if we really got to see it, but how she, like, basically... Well, she doesn't have a human form. She is just Mana. So I like the way she, like, has her, like, witch's outfit pretty much, but she also has her just normal outfit so she can blend into society. And we got to see her in that, and she looks super cute in the illustrations. So yeah, I loved all that about her. I loved her not only in Limited, but I also thought she was amazing in the epilogue. Even though it was more focused on Nanako-san, she was amazing in the epilogue for Jokers. And there's only one negative I would say about her character, and it's one of those things where I said that for multiple characters I'm just going to have to look past some of the crappy bits of Limited. So one of the things you have to look past with her character is the bad writing when it came to her being so useless against Pukin. Because we had this stuff built up little by little throughout the 2 volumes, I guess Limited was. We had it built up little by little that she's a mage. She doesn't have the strength of magical girls, but she can use some of her magic steroids and be super powerful. And eventually reaches the point where, in order to take down Pukin, I'm gonna need to nearly OD on the magic steroids. So she goes crazy with the magic steroids. And even after going crazy with the magic steroids, she is, like, useless. Her and Nanako-san working together, like, holds back Pukin for maybe all of, like, what was it, like 14 seconds or something like that? So all of that build-up throughout the course of the entire, like, 2 volumes, the entire arc, for, like, her to be, like, a tiny bit useful for like 14 seconds when we had just seen Cooter He-May do the same thing alone for like much longer and much more effectively against Pukin. So, like, that's the one negative with Mana's character. I love everything about her, but you have to look past the fact that that whole plot line ended up being kind of pointless because we built it up and we built it up and we built it up, and then it wasn't even really that useful. It kind of feels like almost like they didn't even need it, because I'm pretty sure everything came down to Nanako-san in that situation anyway. So even without her using the power-up, I think things still would have kind of worked out so that it all came down to Nanako-san anyway. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while. So, yeah, that's the one negative about Mana. And now in 19th is Rienetta. I have always loved Rienetta. She was kind of bad, I guess you could argue, but she had, I feel like, understandable motivations. I thought her design was amazing. Her powers and everything were really cool. Yeah, I love her design. The whole doll thing, totally, yes, I am into. I love the doll joints and everything. So she is adorable. I love her so freaking much. The one panel was so badass where her arm was all jacked up and stuff. So cool. And she's like Wolverine turned Sasori turned Pinocchio. Like, she has all this stuff going on. But yeah, I love her. I freaking love Rienetta. She is like how I said that even though Magicaloid wasn't the best person, I really felt for Magicaloid, and Magicaloid ended up being a character I really liked despite other people not being as into. I feel like Rienetta is everything I said about Magicaloid, but like cranked up even further. So, yeah, she's another character that I feel is similar to Magicaloid in her story, and I freaking love Rienetta. Next, in 18th, we have Weiss Winter Prison. Now, Weiss was one of my early favorites. I think in my first video, because I did one video after Unmarked, the next after episodes, and now this one after Jokers. So basically, once every 2 little volumes, story arcs. I guess technically 3 volumes. So, in my first one, I think she was in 3rd place, but I guess that shows how much opinions change. I still freaking love her. She's made it all the way to 18th. Everything about her is cool. Everything. Her story, cool. Her relationships, cool. Her design, cool. She has one of the best designs. And her powers, cool. Everything about her is magical. So yeah, I guess that's about it. She's just great in every way, but there are other characters that have come along that I like more, and other characters that maybe I didn't like more beforehand, but through episodes or through other means, I've come to like them more. Now 17's one people are going to totally disagree with. We have Sonia Bean. Sonia, look at her. She is so adorable. How can you not love Sonia? Sonia is one of the cutest characters. Her design is one of the best from any of the arcs. Sonia Bean's is one of my favorite designs. Her power is also one of my favorite powers, and she uses it really well. It's not like I've seen people with similar, looking at you, Boku no Hero Academia, I've seen people with powers that can take things apart that aren't used as well in other series. And then we have Sonia, who is so amazing in every way. I want to know more about her. I want more of her in the story, somehow or another, I guess through the next episodes that I'm going to get to eventually. I want more Sonia Bean. She's amazing. I love her. And one of the only bad things she did was killing Captain Grace, and I didn't really even like Captain Grace very much. So, I mean, net positive, I'm okay with it. One of my absolute favorites. I love Sonia Bean. Next up in 16th, we have Wedyn, and honestly, Wedyn should be like the best character, but the BS death happened. The last bit of writing for Limited was not very good, and she really should have survived. Not only did her character have a great personality, a great design and power and all that, the power could have been something really, really cool to tell stories with in the future, but also her character, if she would have survived, her motivations and her personality would have fit in so perfectly with the story moving forward. It seems kind of ridiculous in hindsight to have killed her off because of how well she fits into the continuing story and how great of a role she could have played in wanting to stop what Fla was planning. So really, she was the perfect character to keep alive, let alone give a BS death. She really, really should have survived. I can say that about a few characters where I'm like, writing-wise, it maybe would have been better for them to survive, but I can say without any doubt, Wedyn should have survived, and it was a writing mistake to have killed off Wedyn. And that's kind of why she isn't higher up on the list. But yeah, like I said, everything about her was just the best. It was so good. She should be the best, honestly. 16th is Wedyn. Moving into the top 15, we have Cooter He-May. Cooter He-May, or Nozomi Himeno, was one of the focal points of Limited, one of the best parts of Limited, generally was one of the best characters from any of the arcs with her story. Her story was so good. And again, she runs into the same problem that Funny Trick and Wedyn had, where she really shouldn't have died. Her death was kind of a BS ass-pull moment. But I feel like it hurts her less than Wedyn's death because Wedyn really, really should have survived. And also her death wasn't as good. And it hurts her less than it hurts, say, Funny Trick, because Funny Trick kind of, I don't know, I feel like with the emotion behind everything that had happened because of Pukin and because of Pithy Frederica to Kuru Hime, and because of the way that she fought back so valiantly, her death was still really cool. Even though it's BS that she died, she was still really cool in the moment until it happened. So, again, another character suffering from Limited's kind of lapsed writing, but a really, really good character, other than the lapses in writing. Now in 14th is Melville. I loved Melville. Her power and design are both amazing. One of the coolest powers, one of the coolest designs for sure. Her design is amazing. She played a really good role in the story of Restart. Again, Restart was just an absolutely amazing story. Her role in it was great. And the one thing I'd say is maybe a negative with her is that I think that the story could have been so much more entertaining if she was good. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't really take much away from her, because, like, her story with her being bad was still really, really great. I just think that because she looked so much like Cranberry, and because of her relationship with Cranberry, it kind of felt like it's too obvious to just have her be the one that wants to go around killing people. So if it had turned out that she was just a totally good girl, she was just on the side of good the whole time, I think I honestly would have liked that even better. Her story was already great, but I think I would have liked it even better if instead of just being the obvious bad guy, she sort of subverted our expectations and was good the whole time. And now, getting into 13, we have Detic Bell, one of my absolute complete favorites in Restart, which is, of course, my favorite arc in Magical Girl Raising Project. She was really one of the carrying forces of the arc, between what we saw of her in the actual game as a magical girl, and then her in her real-life form. She was a carrying part of the story. One of my favorite things about her, as with so many other characters, was her relationships. Her relationship with Lapis Lazuli was so good. And her power was really cool and creative. Her just general character, personality, design, detective stuff was really cool and creative. So yeah, I liked everything about her. Oh, and I almost didn't even mention her episode story. I really loved her story in episodes too. So, yeah, every single thing about her was great. If I were to say what my favorite thing was, it would be her relationship with Lapis Lazuli, but one of my favorite characters in my favorite arc. And 12th is Ripperu, one of the main characters. I think there's not too much to say that you probably haven't heard a million times because she's one of the main characters. But some of the things I personally liked, other than I don't even feel the need to really talk too much about her personality and design and powers and all that. But I like that in the anime I don't think I appreciated her as much because Snow White was more of the main character in the anime, but in the light novel it's like totally flipped the opposite way, where Ripple is like very clearly sort of all the girls kind of share times, like shown from their perspective, but Ripple is like really portrayed as like a main character in the light novel version of Unmarked. So that made me appreciate her more. And then so did Limited. And that's one of the things where I already liked Ripple and Snow White. They're the original survivors. But then we got Limited and we got Jokers that just added so much more to their characters. So I loved her in Limited. I felt like that helped her character so much. So yeah, and I think the only reason maybe she's not even higher on the list is because Limited less so, but Limited and Jokers especially came in and introduced, even though I like her more than I did originally, Ripple's probably still lower ranked than she was last time, just because they introduced so many more characters in those new arcs that I came to really love. And I know I said some were probably surprising choices for me on the lower end. I think this, for a lot of you, is going to be a surprising choice for me on the upper end. In 11th place, I'm putting Prism Cherry because her design, her power, her story, personality, everything was great. She's the highest ranked for me out of the pure elements. And I like when I'm surprised by a character. I didn't think I would like Prism Cherry as much as many other characters, especially when I thought she died earlier on. But just the story of her return being so hype and her sacrifice and her death being so good. Now, her surviving could have been very, very cool, but I'm totally cool with her death because it was a really, really good return and then sacrifice. I just really like Prism Cherry after all of that. The way she used her power creatively, all of it was so good. And the way that she could have survived, she got pulled out of there and saved, but she went back in order to try to save her friends and to save people she had never even really met. Prism Cherry was the ideal magical girl. I know Pithy Frederica talks about it all the time, and a lot of the villains have talked about it. It's what Cranberry was looking for in a way. It's what, say, Keek was looking for. The ideal magical girl is this big concept that's been thrown around in the series, and honestly, I feel like you can't argue against Prism Cherry being the ideal magical girl. And that's the thing, is the ideal magical girl sacrifices herself and dies doing so to save others, even if they aren't people she's even met. So yeah, I think that Prism Cherry is the ideal magical girl. She did it in the end. She succeeded. She is the ideal magical girl that everyone's been looking for. And because of that, she's dead. Like, that's one of the costs of being the ideal magical girl. But yeah, this is one I don't think that a lot of people would probably be expecting me to put so highly on the list, or to think of so highly. But I actually really love Prism Cherry. And if you couldn't tell that I absolutely love Jokers, a second Jokers character in a row, bringing us into our top 10, it's Fela Ru. Really the freelancer that should have survived. I'm okay with her dying, but I feel like at least one of the freelance characters should have survived. I really, really would have liked Fela Ru to continue on. And it's like even Snow White was like, okay, I'm staying behind and sacrificing myself, you two escape. And then Fela Ru's the one that dies and not Snow White. Not that I want Snow White to die, of course, but it really felt like Fela Ru should have been safe at that point. But yeah, I totally love Fela Ru. Her power, her personality, her design, all of it was stuff that was cool from the beginning, but it grew on me even more. I love the concept of her just looking for work. She's just trying to find a job. It was so, so good. She was really badass in her use of her powers. Like, everything about her during the arc was well written. She wasn't one of, like, the carrying forces in Jokers in the same way that, say, the villains were, or that, not Prism Cherry, or that Styler Mimi was, because we saw from Styler Mimi's perspective a lot, or that even Snow White was. But she was still a pretty important force in Jokers, and I loved her because of that in that arc. Really, don't think there's too much else I can remember to say about her. But yeah, I loved everything about Fela Ru and kind of wish she would have survived, but I'm okay with her dying just because her story for what we got and her character for what we got was really, really good. And in number 9 is a third Joker's character in a row, it's Stunt Chica. And I know a lot of you are probably like, how are you putting Stunt Chica above Ripple? But I love Stunt Chica just from a conceptual idea perspective. She did not know she was Ripple. Stunt Chica was not Ripple because she didn't know she was Ripple, and then Ripple had her memories erased again, so Ripple doesn't know she was Stunt Chica. It's so amazing. They are the same person, but they're totally, totally not the same person because neither one of them remembers that they are the other. So Stunt Chica is her total own person while still being Ripple. It's so cool as a concept. And I've never seen things done like that before. So it was really, really cool. The way she used her powers, her story. I love the way that she never spoke and she just sort of spoke in gestures and stuff. The way she was kind of like a funny clown magical girl. Everything about her was so, so good. Her story through Jokers was so good. The way that you never knew if you could trust her or not, if she was good or bad. Everything about Stunt Chica was so, so cool, to the point where I like Stunt Chica more than I actually like Ripple. Stunt Chica is so good. Oh, I love her so much. Like I said, the concept is just amazing from the outset. Next in 8th place is one of the best early characters and one of the best early death for the arc characters, Nema-Dean. She was so, so good in so little time in the original Unmarked. Episodes added in so much more for her character. But in general, she's so good. I really, really love everything about her character, her design. Her power particularly is really, really awesome. And I love the idea that she's basically the immortal waifu. Even though she died, she still survives within the dream world, so I'd be totally down, even if they brought her back into the main story, to play a role in the main story, visiting people's or Snow White's dreams and stuff, to give advice or to help out. Like, her being basically an immortal being that lives in the dream world is such a cool idea that I would love to see so much more Nema-Dean in the dream world. So yeah, and beyond all that, I think even she was my second favorite character in my first list. I love her real life form too, and that sounded weird. Her real life form, two separate words, not the combination word. But I thought her death was great too. Her death was one of the most feelsy to me. Now that we've had more arcs, there have been more feelsy deaths. But hers was still very, very good and very easy to connect with. I think in the anime in particular, when her mom finds her body, that is one of the saddest and feelsiest moments to me. After I watched it the first time, it was a good few days that I was still thinking about that scene like, man, that is rough, that is depressing. So she was a character that her death, like, even more than others that I think are maybe better now, looking back on them, her death was one of the ones that hit me the hardest for sure. But yeah, 8th place, friggin' love Nema-Dean. And in 7th place is Hardcore Alice. She had possibly the best story in the first arc. I think that she might have had the best story in Unmarked. Snow White's growth and development, and Ripple's too, were both so good, but Hardcore Alice is up there with them. In particular, another thing I always say, I love character relationships. I've said it a bunch. Her relationship with Snow White adds so much into her character, and adds so much into what makes her character amazing. Now, the story of her power, who she was behind being a magical girl, everything like that was done super well and was amazing. Just her final words to Snow White and everything are really what pushes Snow White to be who she is, among other magical girls that have affected Snow White. But yeah, Hardcore Alice, even to this day, now that we've got more arcs and more stories, if you were to ask me some of the best, Nokko-chan would be up there, and Hardcore Alice might be... Oh gosh, other than Snow White, Hardcore Alice might be the best story that was told in the series. In 6th place is Tama, and everybody knows that from the beginning Tama's been one of my absolute favorites. Everything about her design, her power, it's all great. She had a really feelsy story, and I feel a lot for her character and who she is, so she's one of my favorites for that reason. I love her relationship with Ruler, all of that was good. Her death was just so sad and heartbreaking, and she's one of those characters where her power was awesome, and I think she had a ton of story potential that I really have said this from the beginning. I would have liked to have seen her live, because Cranberry is one of the most influential characters in the entire series. It seems like every single arc there is some way that Cranberry has affected the story of that arc. Whether it's affecting the characters in a certain way, setting certain things into motion, Cranberry is important to every single arc. She's a real central point of the series, and a lot of people viewed her as either this big, strong person, or after it came out what she was doing, this big, terrible monster. So to have the person who killed that big, terrible monster to survive, and then have them just be like this innocent girl who got lucky stabbing her and killing her with her power and stuff. Having somebody like that survive after killing this sort of big bad boss that everybody saw in Cranberry, I feel like that would have been a really cool story to continue telling, so I would have loved to have seen Tama survive. But either way, one of my favorite characters, one of the best. I love Tama. Next is us getting into the top 5 with Cranberry or Clamberry. No, I say Clamberry a lot out of habit, just because I think it's a funny translation that I had seen people calling her when I first got into the series. And also, with the katakana of her name, they use mu instead of n, so it's Cranberry. So yeah, it almost sounds more like Clamberry or Cranberry. They don't use n for whatever reason. So it's kind of very strange, but either way, I just got over talking about how Cranberry is like the most important character in the series. I can't think of a character more important to the overall series and what goes on overall. Now, Snow White's very important to the main plot because she's kind of the main character. But when it comes to the overall story and how every arc is affected, Cranberry kind of transcends arcs in affecting what all the different characters do by the role she played in their lives, usually a negative one. Now, one thing that's always been a point of controversy with me is I've never really seen Cranberry as that bad a person, because she doesn't really kill any good guys besides Lapis L, and she kills more bad guys than most of the good guys do. And in addition to that, there's the situation where she was kind of just a scarred child that survived something, and all this whole survival game stuff was really Fav's plan, and Fav just tricked her into doing everything because she was a scarred child. So really, she still did this evil stuff, but she has a lot more of an excuse for doing it than, say, like Swim Swim or a lot of the other evil characters who kind of did it for their own selfish reasons. She was kind of manipulated by Fav into doing it. So yeah, I've never really seen her as that bad a character, but her design is amazing, one of the best. I wish we got to know about her human self. I really, really want to know about her human self. Her power was really cool, and the way she used it was very effective. So yeah, everything about her was amazing. She's been one of my favorites since the beginning. When I did my first list, I've said this is the third version, when I did my first list, she was number 1, and now she's just barely hanging into the top 5, which shows how many other characters have shown up or progressed that have been so good. But yeah, I suppose that's it. Most important character, probably my top waifu. I love Cranberry. And in fourth place is a character that I think is a fan favorite, and also a character that I absolutely love and have from the beginning, Clantail. I love Clantail so much. She's such an understated character, yet so very, very important at the same time. And honestly, I think we should have a lot more characters that are like her, a lot more survivors that aren't surviving because they're important to the main central plot, like, say, Snow White, Flea, etc. More just like we have some survive that are important to the main central plot, and just have more survivors like her that are like, hey, I survived the game too, and now I'm gonna do my own thing. I don't need to recur too much, if at all, in the main plot. I think we should have some more side character survivors like her. She loves animals, which is great. Her powers are quite lewd. She is animal butt waifu, and also like queen of zoology. And she could even transform into things that aren't real animals, like dragons and such. So she is just the best. One of my absolute favorites from Restart, which was my favorite arc, so of course Restart characters kind of get bonus points in my eyes. But yeah, that's it, I guess. Oh, and I love that her kind of almost default form is deer form, because deer centaur in general is a really cool concept. So yeah, love Clantail. I said that at nearly the end of all of these characters' little discussions, just because they're all so good at this point. Honestly, any one of these top 10 or so should be number 1, because they're all so good. So yeah, fourth is Clantail. And in third place, our bronze medalist, so to speak, is a character that's new to the list, Shufflin, taking the jump all the way up to third in just the first list that she's been in. Shufflin is so good. She literally carries Jokers' plot. The plot of Jokers could not happen the way it happens without Shufflin. The best part of Jokers was seeing this slow sort of battle of attrition with the girls trying to survive when wave after wave of Shufflins were coming at them, and that wouldn't be possible without Shufflin serving as an amazing villain. She's such a good villain, and that's what Grimheart's a very good villain, but Shufflin just eclipses her in being a really good, really compelling villain, and yet at the same time not feeling like Pithy Frederica or Swim Swim, where you're like, oh, screw this asshole. She manages to be a very, very good villain while still, I don't know, not coming across as some irredeemably evil jerk, you know? And when it comes to her powers, I love her design, by the way. Her design is so good. I love that there's just all these different forms of her and everything. But when it comes to her powers, having all those different forms is awesome, and how they all have different strengths and weaknesses and such, and different strengths based on the number in the suit. All of that's good, and I think the way it's used in the series is probably second only to Snow White's. I think Snow White's power is the only power in the series that's more well written and well used than Shufflin. So already, great design, great power, one of the best characters already. Everything about her is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, in her first list ever, I'm putting Shufflin at number 3. And now in second place is our main character, pretty much, Snow White. And I think this is even the highest I've put Snow White on any of these lists. I don't think she was this high up in the first or the second one, and that's because rather than just being good in her arc, the beauty of Snow White's character is how she's grown and developed over the course of multiple arcs. How great she was in Restart, in episodes, and then especially in Jokers. Jokers did so much to take a character that was already good and make her amazing. Like, Jokers is probably the best arc for Snow White's character. She was so good. Everything with her in Fall was amazing. Her power, I just got done kind of talking about during my Shufflin discussion, is the most well used in the series. It starts out, you're like, oh, that's not the most useful power. It's cool, it's fitting for her, but it's not the most useful power. And then it kind of proves you wrong with how well her power is written. It is written in such a brilliant way, and she turns this power that shouldn't be that useful into a power that's totally OP. It's so good. One of my favorite things was her growth over the course of the arc and how it wrapped all together in Unmarked, at the end of Unmarked, how she sort of came together as this person who could survive without killing anybody. She was proving the others wrong, that she deserved to survive, and she was able to survive without killing anyone. She was a true magical girl, where everybody else, she didn't know if there were any true magical girls, but she was one. And to go on from there to become the magical girl hunter, everything with her in the future arcs was great. So yeah, and I love that she kept and uses Ruler, the weapon. All of that is good. Trying to think if there's anything else. Her relationships, her character relationships are great. Ever since the beginning, her stuff with Lapis was whatever. Her relationship with Ripple is good. Her relationship with Hardcore Alice at the beginning was amazing, though. And then again in Jokers, where she starts developing these new relationships, all of that was great. And her relationship with Fall especially is amazing to read. I loved every time we got to read from Fall's perspective and see how she was doing and what was going on through Fall's eyes. So yeah, I absolutely love Snow White, and it's because of this continual development, arc after arc, that in the third list, after all this time, she has moved up all the way to second place. And in number 1 for the second list in a row is Shadow Gale. I had her at number 1 last time, and she is still my favorite character. She's still my favorite character because the way that she operates in the story, I feel, is somewhat relatable. You can really get behind her and cheer for her. And as these other characters got introduced and developed more in future arcs, I was like, okay, I'm probably going to put somebody else as my number 1 character. Probably maybe Snow White or Shufflin. But then came the epilogue and the end for Jokers, and it was so amazing. Finding out the way that she had her own plans, the way that she cared about Fla, and the way she was willing to sacrifice herself to betray Fla, to do what was right, but not only to do what was right in general and help innocent people, but because she wanted to help Fla herself. She had seen what kind of person she had become and wanted to do something to help her friend, to save her from herself. It was so, so good. Her design's amazing, her story in Restart is great. Like I said, she was incredibly relatable then. All the stuff with her and Fla in the real-life Memorian Kanoe sense has been really, really great. I think her power is really interesting too. It's not the most well-utilized in the series. It is very important to the key plot in a lot of different ways, like her modifying Nanako-san's goggles or doing different things like that. That's played a very important role in the main plot. But in general, Earp Hour has been mostly used like that for plot convenience. It could have been used more creatively, and hey, we may see it used more creatively in the future. But yeah, I guess that's about it. I'm not sure if there's anything else to say. I love the story of her in real life, love the story of her as a magical girl character. She's one of the best characters from the best arc in my opinion, and what really cemented her as number one, even when I was questioning it, was the epilogue of Jokers. And the epilogue of Jokers is honestly one of the best bits of writing in the entire series. Because while I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, Limited had its pros and cons. Oh, the episodes really made me like certain characters more. I've talked about the epilogue to Jokers quite a lot. How I've said in a lot of these discussions that the epilogue to Jokers made me like that character more. So yeah, that it did a ton for a ton of different characters, including my top character, Shadow Gale. So yeah, I suppose that's it. Thank you for sticking through my discussion of these characters. I'm just going to leave this image up on the screen probably until I finish this out, because I'm just going to do a quick outro here. Thank you so much for watching. These videos take a long while to edit, so as soon as I get this edited, it'll be up as soon as possible. And after this, I'll continue on doing my design reactions for the next arc, and then get into reading the next arc. So I'm excited to see what new characters we can get and how they'll add into this list. And I guess after every 2-3 volumes I'll do another list like this. Because I think I've done one basically every 3 volumes so far. I did one after reading Unmarked, and then I read both volumes of Restart and episodes, then I did one, and then I did both parts of Limited and Jokers, right? And now I'm doing one. So I guess after I do the next 3 volumes, which I believe are Aces, episodes, was it episode Sigma, and then Peaceful Days, then I'll do another one. Then I'll read Queens, and we should have some new arcs coming out. I would love to read the manga at some point. So I guess maybe once we reach the point where we're all caught up on light novel stuff and there's no more light novel stuff to get to, and I'm just waiting for the next one to come, once we reach that point, maybe I'll do some manga stuff for the channel. Kind of getting way off topic here for a supposedly quick outro. But yeah, thank you for sticking through all these. I would love to hear your lists and who your favorites are in the comments, because just character discussions are something that I love doing, so I would love to talk to everybody about their favorites. So yeah, just like if you like the video and comment down there too. Tell me what you thought of my favorites, and tell me who your favorites are too. Subscribe for more Magical Girl Raising Project, tons more on the channel if you want. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated on stuff for the channel or talk to you there. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us there, just ask and I can give you a link. That's it. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.